So I was having a conversation with somebody I really respect recently, and they asked me the question, are you hiding? And if so, what is the mechanism that you're using to hide? And if you think about that for a second and you ask yourself, am I hiding? The first reaction that we tend to have is no, right? I know that was my first reaction. My first thing was, what are you talking about, man? Like, I'm on social media posting my opinions and about my life. Anybody who's met me for more than 5 seconds can figure out the fact that I'm very extroverted. I love, talking and conversations. I'm, pretty boisterous person. Like, no, I'm not hiding from anything. Like, why would you ask me that? And then as we talked about it a little bit more, and what he was really kind of helping me see is that, like, just because we're hiding, that doesn't necessarily mean from people. Like, are we hiding from things that we need to do? Are we hiding from self-work that needs to be done? Are those the things that we're hiding from? And then I was like, oh, okay, that's an interesting context. I hadn't thought about it like that. Because when I hear the word hiding, I tend to think of fear, right? It's like if we're hiding it because there's something out there that scares us. And the more I thought about it, the more I realized, wow, there are two things in my life specifically where I am kind of procrastinating. Why am I doing that? And what I realized is when I thought about one of them in particular, yeah, there was a level of fear there that was keeping me from taking action. And then it was, well, what is the second part of the question that he asked me was, well, what is the mechanism that you were using to hide? And I had to ask him to break that down for me. I was like, I'm not sure what you mean by that. I'm a simple guy. What does mechanism even mean, right? And basically all he was trying to say is just that when we are hiding from things, whether it could be people, could be a conversation that we need to have. It could be doing something in our work life or our personal life or whatever the case may be, whatever it is that fear is preventing us from doing. What are we using to fill up our time and distract ourselves from doing that thing anyway? Because one of the things I solve for whenever I'm working with people is how they're spending their time. Because that's normally one of the most fundamentally misunderstood things that people, think in their life. They think they have no time. They think they're just so busy. And they're right. They are busy, but they do have time for the things that matters. They're just not making it. And then as we go through some simple exercises, they realize, oh, wow, I do. And what I realized is what he was calling hiding was a lot of what I was actually helping people with. I never put it into that context, but I really liked it because, again, what ended up being at the root of a lot of these things that I work with people on and that I have to work with myself on is fear. Fear of pick your thing is ultimately what's holding us back. And a lot of times it's actually manufactured fear. It's not even something that's generally real or likely. So when I thought about it in my life, I was like, what is the mechanism that I am using to hide? I realized that football was a mechanism. I was excited for the start of it. And it's not that football's a bad thing. I love football. It's a way for me to connect with my family. We have good times talking about it, different things like that. But when you take it to a certain level, when you spend a certain amount of time on it, your fantasy football team, watching, 9 hours worth of games in a day, whatever the case is, that was an area to where it was like, well, I was really just throwing myself into that as a distraction from this thing that I really needed to do. And then I started looking at it in other people's lives, clients that I work with, people that I know. Politics are something that people are hiding in right now. They're the chaos of should we elect candidate A versus candidate B, and what was the scandal this week, and what did they say, and all this. And the reality is this: if you can answer this question, who are you voting for right now? And then maybe a follow-up question of, is there anything that could change your mind in the next 60 days or however long we have till election? If the answer is yes, I know who I'm voting for, and no, nothing's going to change my mind, well, then you really have no reason to pay attention to anything else in politics until, November 5th or whatever it is that you have to vote. Everything else is just a way for you to hide from all the other things in your life that you need to be doing. Because unless you don't have any problems, unless your money's great, your marriage is perfect, your kids are firing on all cylinders, and you have an amazing relationship, you're taking care of your family, you're volunteering in the community, and then you're doing things that are personally fulfilling for you and enjoying hobbies, unless all of that is going absolutely perfectly, then paying attention to like what trolls are writing on social media and being a troll yourself on social media and accomplishing absolutely nothing with that and waiting for the gotcha moments for whatever candidate you don't like so you can say, that confirms what I think about it. All of that is hiding. When I started looking at my life in the context of distractions being used to hide me from, or being used as a mechanism to hide from the things that I knew I needed to do, I don't know. It just gave me a different kind of clarity. It made me a little angry at myself because I don't view myself as somebody who operates from a place of fear, right? I'm not saying I don't have fear. I have plenty of fears. Fear is a very natural thing. You're never going to get rid of fear. And if you do, it's going to be dangerous. You need to know, hey, don't touch that stove, right? You'll burn your hand. That's fear turned to wisdom. But my point that I'm trying to make is that we all have things in our lives that we need to be improving based off of, even if things are going really well for you. If you have strong values and goals, well, then paying attention to 9 hours of football, adjusting your fantasy football team for hours and all these other things, and then politics, and then gossip and drama about celebrities, and then pick your thing, right? At some point, we just have to wake up and realize that there's enjoying those things, there's staying informed, there's having a hobby, and then there's hiding. And when I really started to evaluate that in my own life and what that meant, and then looked at it from a place of why am I hiding in this? Okay, I didn't need to watch that football game. I didn't really care. Sure, I had one fantasy football player in there, but I can just pull up the app for 5 seconds and see how they did. I don't need to watch 3.5 hours of that game. Like, I don't care about these teams. Why am I doing that? And I just think that being able to ask that question ultimately reveals one of the biggest fears that we all have at some point in our life. And that is the fear of the fact that we are failing ourselves. Maybe not completely, maybe not in every element of our life. But I know for me, especially as I get older, it can be challenging to look at all of the different roles that I have in my life. I'm a business owner. I'm a dad. I'm a husband. I'm a son. I'm a brother. I'm a nephew. I'm a friend. I'm a volunteer. The list goes on and on and on. And when you start looking at it from that perspective, it can really start to be overwhelming because there's no way we could live up to the full potential in all of those things, even if we perfectly mastered our time, energy, money, and attention. So it's natural, I think, that as you get older and your roles in society and life start to expand some, that the fears of our inadequacies, the fears of failure, the fears of not being able to do enough and letting people down that we care about and all of this, I think it's natural for us to wrestle with that. And I know for me, there is definitely an element of that in there that I didn't face that fear in other areas of my life. In other areas, it didn't really manifest there. But in this one particular one, knowing that, hey, I need to get going with this on my business. I've been actually saying I'm going to do this for about 10 months now. But then this was the magical part. When I identified that fear, when I named it and I said, wow, I'm actually afraid that I'm going to be successful at this thing and then not be able to deliver. That gave me a to-do list. That gave me actions. That gave me capability to overcome that fear because now I know what it is. It's just like going into a hospital and being sick. Unfortunately, I had a family member who was in the hospital for like 7 days, couldn't eat, had an IV drip in. They're like, we do not know what's wrong. They're looking for bacteria and cultures and all these other things. They couldn't find anything. And there was a lot of fear there. because we didn't know what was wrong. So therefore, we couldn't do anything about it. But then they finally figured it out. They finally realized this is the issue. It's actually your own body that is causing this because there's a mix-up here, okay? So then when we identified the problem, we were able to come up with actions in order to be able to treat it. Instant relief for everybody involved. My family member, everybody who's been, praying for, supporting them, different things like that. Instant relief because we're like, okay, great. Yeah, it's not ideal, but we can do something about this now. It was the exact same thing for me. And I think it's going to be the exact same thing for you. When you stop and realize, okay, I am hiding from this in my life. I am hiding from that uncomfortable conversation I need to have with my wife about our spending. I am hiding from the fact that I told my friends that I was going to start getting into shape for, the ski trip we were going to do. And I know they're all working out and I'm not. I am hiding from the fact that I'm probably going to get fired from my job because I'm not performing or our company isn't doing well. And I just don't want to do anything about it. And I'm going to ostrich this thing and just stick my head in the sand and write it out. Like when we start really naming the things that we're afraid of and we identify that actually puts the power back in our hands. Again, fear is a healthy, very natural thing. If I threw you into a lion's den at the zoo and you were not afraid, there's something wrong with you. So fear is a very natural thing. It's there to tell us something. The problem is when we do not identify it, when we do not name it, and we don't do anything about it, then we just allow it to grow. And then it starts to control our actions and influence our behaviors to do things like hiding in different things. So I would just encourage you to take some time and really start asking yourself the question, what am I hiding from? Let's just assume, come from a place of humility and go, yeah, I probably am hiding from something, whether I recognize it or not. I know that wasn't my initial reaction. My initial reaction is, are you kidding me? But when I really thought about it, I was really able to identify something that I was stalling in, that was really important to me, that I valued, that I had invested tens of thousands of dollars into, and the only holdup was me. And when I got that fear down, I said, okay, I'm going to do this, this, and this, and I'm going to call somebody, get accountability on it to make sure I do it, and boom. And now I'm moving. I'm going. I've got momentum. We're past that point. But if I hadn't taken the time to ask those questions, I don't know if I would have made progress on that yet. And I probably could have continued to stall and not got as good of results. So ask yourself the question, what am I hiding from in my life? And what is the mechanism in which I am using to hide? If you do that, I think that you'll do some really interesting self-work there. And then all I can say is that once you figure out what that thing or those things are, just pick one. Pick one thing that you want to overcome today. Call a friend, tell your spouse, girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever, somebody that's important to you, and say, can you ask me tomorrow if I've done, this thing or these two things, because I really want to get past this hump I'm kind of stuck on. And oh, by the way, I've been watching too much football. I've been paying too much attention to politics. I'm, just on social media way too much recently, doing all these things. Whatever the mechanism is you're using to hide, ask them to hold you accountable and say, I'm going to reduce that or eliminate it completely for a certain time. And it would just be good if you ask me about that every once in a while. You do that, I think you'll be shocked at the level of progress that you can make and the level of life satisfaction that you're going to experience in a very short amount of time.